Meet Daniel. Daniel is 44 years old. He makes $85,000 a year, owns a house, drives a decent car, takes one vacation a year with his family, and by every external measure, looks like someone who has figured it out. But 2 weeks ago, Daniel sat down to do something he had been avoiding for 3 years. He opened every account he had, his 401k, his savings account, his brokerage, and added up the real number. The total was $112,000. He sat there staring at that number for a long time because Daniel had always assumed he was on track. He had been contributing to his 401k since his late 20s. He had never gone bankrupt. He had never made any catastrophic financial decisions. And yet, somehow, at 44 years old, with 21 years of working behind him, he had $112,000 saved for a retirement that could easily last 30 years. That night, Daniel typed something into Google that a lot of people in their 40s type when the reality finally hits them. He typed, "Is it too late for me?" This video is the answer to that question. Not a motivational answer, not a vague answer, a mathematical answer, with specific milestones, specific numbers, and a specific roadmap for what to do whether you are 31 or 49. Because the truth is more complicated than yes or no, and understanding exactly where the milestones are is the first step to knowing whether you are behind, how far behind, and what catching up actually looks like in real numbers. Stay with me. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly where you should be at every major age checkpoint in your 30s and 40s, and more importantly, what to do if you are not there yet. Before we get into the milestones, we need to establish one fundamental concept, because without this, the numbers will not make sense. There are two completely different ways wealth grows, and most people only experience one of them their entire lives. The first way is linear. You earn money, you save some of it, the pile gets bigger. You add $500 this month, the pile grows by $500. You add $500 next month, it grows by another $500. Straight line, predictable, slow. This is how most people think about saving, like filling a bucket with a cup, one cup at a time. You can see the progress, but it feels like it takes forever. The second way is exponential. Your money starts generating its own money. That money generates more money. The pile grows not because of what you add, but because of what is already there, multiplying. This is compound growth, and it does not look like filling a bucket. It looks like a snowball rolling down a hill. Here's what most people never grasp about a snowball. When it starts at the top of the hill, it is small. For the first few rotations, it picks up almost nothing. It's doing all the work and going nowhere fast. If you watched just those first few rotations, you'd think the whole process was pointless. But here's what happens as the snowball gets bigger. Each rotation now covers more ground. Each rotation picks up more snow. The surface area keeps growing, and at some point, the snowball stops needing to be pushed. Gravity takes over. It's rolling on its own. Your money works exactly the same way. The painful part, the part that causes most people to give up or check out, is the early phase, the phase where you're doing all the contributing and the returns feel like a rounding error. The milestone that changes everything, the moment the snowball starts rolling on its own, is different for every person, but the math is consistent, and that math is what we're going to walk through today, decade by decade, milestone by milestone.
Let us start with your 30s, because your 30s are where the foundation either gets built or gets delayed. And the cost of delay in your 30s is not measured in years, it is measured in hundreds of thousands of dollars. The first milestone, $10,000 invested by age 30. This sounds almost embarrassingly small, $10,000, but here's why this number matters more than it looks. $10,000 invested at age 30 left completely untouched at a 7% average annual return becomes approximately $149,000 by age 65. You did not add another dollar, you did not do anything, you just let the math work for 35 years. One early $10,000 turns into nearly $150,000 on its own. Now compare that to someone who waits until 40 to invest that same $10,000. At 7% for 25 years instead of 35, that $10,000 becomes $54,000. Not $149,000, $54,000. Same money, same return rate, 10 years of delay. The result is less than 1/3. This is why the first milestone is not about the amount. It is about establishing the habit and the account and the automatic contribution before life gets complicated. Because here's the reality of your 30s. They get complicated fast. Mortgages arrive, kids arrive, car payments arrive, career pivots happen. And every year that passes without automating a contribution is a year of compounding permanently lost. $10,000 by 30 is the snowball at the top of the hill. Small, seemingly insignificant, but it's the beginning of everything. The second milestone, 1x your annual salary invested by age 35. This is the benchmark used by most major financial institutions. Fidelity, Vanguard, and T. Rowe Price all use variations of this as their 35-year-old checkpoint. If you earn $70,000 a year, the target is $70,000 invested by age 35. If you earn $90,000, the target is $90,000. Now, a lot of people hear this and immediately feel behind, and statistically, most people are. The median retirement savings for someone in their mid-30s in America is around $35,000, roughly half of what it should be at this milestone. But here's what matters more than whether you have hit this milestone: understanding why it exists. At 1x your salary invested by 35, you're giving yourself a 30-year runway for compounding to do the heavy lifting. At 7% annual returns, $70,000 invested at 35 becomes approximately $533,000 by age 65, without adding another dollar. The compounding alone over 30 years turns 1 year of salary into more than 7 times your salary. That's the power of hitting the first milestone on time. But here's the honest truth for anyone sitting at 35 with $20,000 or $30,000 saved. You're behind by the benchmark, but you're not out of the race. The math is forgiving if you accelerate now. A $20,000 shortfall at 35 that you close over the next 3 years by increasing contributions costs you far less than a $20,000 shortfall you ignore for a decade. The milestone is a checkpoint, not a verdict. The third milestone, a savings rate of 15% or higher. This one doesn't have a dollar amount. It's a behavior milestone, and it's arguably the most important one in your 30s. Your savings rate, the percentage of your gross income you invest, is the single most powerful lever you control. Not your investment picks, not which fund you choose, your savings rate. Here's the math on why 15% is the threshold number. Someone earning $75,000 and saving 6% is putting away $4,500 a year. At 7% over 30 years, that becomes approximately $454,000. Someone earning the same $75,000 and saving 15% is putting away $11,250 a year. At 7% over 30 years, that becomes approximately $1.1 million. Same salary, same return, same time. The difference between 6% and 15% is the difference between $454,000 and $1.1 million. The 6% saver is the person who contributes the company match minimum and never revisits it, which is, by the way, the majority of American workers. They set it and forget it, and spend the next 30 years wondering why the number doesn't feel big enough. The 15% saver is the person who treats their retirement contribution like a non-negotiable bill. Before the rent gets paid, before the groceries, before anything, the investment comes out first. How do you get to 15% if you're currently at 6%? You don't do it overnight. You do it with the 1% rule.
Every single time you get a raise, every year, every promotion, you increase your contribution by 1%. A 3% raise means 1% goes to your future self and 2% goes to your lifestyle. You do this consistently for a few years and you reach 15% without ever feeling the pinch, because the money you redirect never lands in your checking account in the first place. You can't miss what you never see. The fourth milestone: 3x your annual salary by age 40. By the time you turn 40, the benchmark jumps significantly. 3 times your annual salary invested. If you're earning $80,000, the target is $240,000 by 40. This is where a lot of people have a reckoning. Your 30s go by fast, the house happened, maybe the kids happened, the lifestyle expanded, and suddenly you're standing at the edge of your 40s and the number in your retirement account doesn't match the number it was supposed to. Let me show you what 3x by 40 actually does for your retirement. $240,000 invested at age 40, growing at 7% for 25 years, becomes approximately $1.3 million by age 65, without adding another dollar. The compounding alone over 30 years turns 1 year of salary into more than 7 times your salary. That's the power of hitting the first milestone on time. But here's the honest truth for anyone sitting at 35 with $240,000. You're not sitting pretty. Your working money is now doing more for you than your own labor. That means you make more money from your investments than you do from your actual job. This is the milestone where the snowball starts to feel heavy, where the momentum you built in your 30s starts compounding into something that feels real. But here's the catch that nobody talks about at this milestone. Most people who hit $240,000 by 40 make a critical mistake. They ease off. They look at the number, they feel good about it, they buy a nicer car, they upgrade the kitchen, they tell themselves they've earned it, and the contribution rate that got them to $240,000 quietly drops from 15% back down to 10%. The math on that mistake is brutal. Dropping from 15% to 10% contributions after 40 doesn't cost you 5% of your retirement wealth. It costs you far more because you're reducing the fuel going into the engine right when the engine is most powerful. The $240,000 milestone isn't a finish line. It's an on-ramp. The highway is just beginning.
Now let us move into the 40s, because your 40s are where everything accelerates, in both directions. The people who built the foundation in their 30s start seeing their money compound at a pace that surprises even them. And the people who delayed start feeling a specific kind of financial anxiety that is hard to describe but very easy to recognize. It is the anxiety of someone who has been avoiding the math and finally looked at it. The fifth milestone, the $100,000 inflection point. If you have not already crossed $100,000 by your early 40s, this is the most important milestone to target first. And here's why. At $100,000 invested at 7% annual returns, your portfolio generates approximately $7,000 per year in growth. That's more than $580 per month just from returns, without you contributing a single extra dollar. For the first time in your financial life, your money is working as hard as you are. Before $100,000, your contributions are doing most of the heavy lifting. The returns are there, but they feel like a small tip rather than a real income. After $100,000, the returns start pulling serious weight. Every year, you're not just adding to the pile is growing itself. Think about what that means practically. If you're contributing $800 a month to your retirement account and the account is generating $580 a month on its own, your effective monthly saving is $1,380, even though you're only writing a check for $800. The money you invested years ago has become a second contributor. It works weekends, it works holidays, it never calls in sick. This is the inflection point. This is where the snowball stops rolling slowly and starts picking up speed. The sixth milestone, 5x your annual salary by age 45. 5 times your annual salary invested by 45.
At $80,000 income, that's $400,000. At $90,000 income, that's $450,000. This is the milestone most people in their mid-40s are furthest from, and it's the milestone that causes the most anxiety when people finally sit down and do the math, like Daniel did at the beginning of this video. Let me show you two paths from age 45 to retirement at 65. Path A. You hit the 5x milestone, $400,000 invested at 45, no additional contributions, just compound growth at 7% for 20 years. That $400,000 becomes approximately $1.55 million by 65. Path B. You're a 2x instead of 5x, $160,000 at 45. Same time horizon, same 7% return, no additional contributions. That $160,000 becomes approximately $619,000 by 65. Same time horizon, the gap between hitting the milestone and missing it is nearly $1 million, and both people are still 20 years from retirement with plenty of time to contribute. Now, here's the critical thing to understand if you're closer to Path B than Path A. The gap is not closed by panic. It's not closed by chasing high-risk investments trying to make up for lost time. It's closed by two things working together. First, maximizing contributions immediately. At 50 and above, the IRS allows catch-up contributions to your 401k, an extra $7,500 per year on top of the standard $23,500 limit in 2025. That's $31,000 per year going into a tax-advantaged account. If you haven't been taking full advantage of this, the 40s are when you start. Second, reducing unnecessary expenses aggressively. The lifestyle choices that felt harmless in your 30s, the car upgrade, the subscription creep, the dining out, compound in the wrong direction in your 40s. Every dollar redirected from consumption into investment now has 20 years to compound. That's still enough time for serious growth. The 5x milestone isn't a ceiling, it's a floor for a comfortable retirement. And if you're below it, the path back is clear, even if it requires real discipline. The 7th milestone, eliminating high-interest debt entirely. This one doesn't get talked about enough in the milestone conversation, because it's not just about what you've saved, it's about what's draining your ability to save. High-interest consumer debt, credit cards typically charging 20 to 25% annually, is mathematically the most destructive force in any wealth-building plan. There's no investment on earth that reliably returns 20 to 25% per year, which means every dollar sitting in a credit card balance is costing you more than any investment is earning you. The target by your mid-40s is zero high-interest consumer debt, not managed, not consolidated, gone. Here's what eliminating $15,000 in credit card debt actually means for your retirement. If you were paying $400 a month in minimum payments and interest on that debt, and you eliminate it by 45, you've just freed up $400 a month to redirect into investments. Over 20 years at 7%, that $400 a month becomes approximately $208,000. You didn't earn more money, you didn't get a raise, you just stopped hemorrhaging money to a credit card company and redirected it toward your future. Same cash flow, completely different outcome. By your mid-40s, high-interest debt should be fully eliminated, not because it feels good, though it does, but because the mathematical cost of carrying it into your 50s is catastrophic. The 8th milestone, building the income floor. This is the milestone almost nobody talks about in their 40s, and almost everybody wishes they had built by the time they reach their 50s. The income floor is a specific amount of liquid, accessible money, separate from your investment accounts, that covers your basic living expenses for 12 months without touching any of your invested assets. Not an emergency fund of $1,000 or $5,000, a full 12-month cushion. Here's why this matters more than it sounds. The single biggest destroyer of long-term investment returns is not market crashes, it's forced selling during market crashes.
People who sell their investments when the market is down 30% because they need the money lock in permanent losses and miss the recovery. People who have 12 months of expenses in cash can sit on their hands, let the market recover, and come out the other side with their wealth intact. In 2008 and 2009, when the market dropped nearly 50%, two types of investors existed. The first type had no cash cushion. They were forced to sell their investments at the bottom to pay their mortgage or cover a job loss. They locked in massive losses and spent years recovering. The second type had a cash cushion. They watched their portfolio numbers fall on paper, but didn't need to sell anything. They held through the crash, and when the market recovered, which it always has, they were whole. One group made good decisions, one group made desperate decisions. The difference wasn't intelligence, it was preparation. Building a 12-month income floor in your 40s isn't sexy. It doesn't show up as a big number in your investment account, but it's the financial infrastructure that protects everything else you've built.
Now, let's talk about what all of this looks like together. Because the milestones are not independent checkpoints. They're a sequence. And the sequence has a specific logic to it. Your 30s are about building the engine, getting the savings rate to 15%, hitting 1x salary by 35, reaching 3x salary by 40, building the habit of automatic contributions before lifestyle inflation can consume every raise you get. Your 40s are about feeding the engine and protecting it, crossing the $100,000 inflection point, targeting 5x salary by 45, eliminating every dollar of high-interest debt, building the income floor that lets the engine run through volatility without being shut down by circumstance. And here's what the math looks like when the sequence works. Someone who hits all 8 milestones, saves 15% from age 30, reaches 5x salary by 45, eliminates debt, builds the income floor, and invests consistently in low-cost index funds tracking the broad market, has a statistically high probability of reaching financial independence by their early to mid-60s. Not surviving retirement, actually living it. The 4% rule, the standard benchmark for retirement income, says you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio annually with historically very high confidence of never running out of money over a 30-year retirement. At $1.5 million, that's $60,000 a year from your portfolio alone before Social Security. At $2 million, it's $80,000 a year. These are not lottery numbers. They're the predictable mathematical output of hitting the milestones, staying consistent, and not derailing the compounding with the lifestyle decisions that trap most people in the middle class forever. So let's come back to Daniel, 44 years old, $112,000 saved. Is it too late? Here's the honest answer. Daniel is behind the 5x milestone by a significant amount. At $85,000 income, the target by 45 is $425,000. He's at $112,000. That's a gap of $313,000. That gap is real. Closing it entirely by 65 requires real action. It requires maximizing contributions immediately, hitting the $31,000 annual limit with catch-up contributions as soon as he turns 50. It requires eliminating any high-interest debt. It requires redirecting any lifestyle inflation from future raises directly into investments. But here's what the math actually shows for Daniel if he takes action today. $112,000 already invested, growing at 7% for 21 years until age 65, becomes approximately $478,000 from his existing savings alone. Then add $1,500 per month in new contributions from today, a serious but achievable savings rate for 21 years at 7%. That adds approximately $909,000. Total at retirement, approximately $1.39 million. At 4% withdrawal, that's $55,600 per year from his portfolio alone.
Add Social Security, even conservatively, and Daniel is looking at $75,000 to $80,000 per year in retirement income. Is that the same outcome he would have had if he had started earlier? No. The compounding he missed in his 30s is gone. That time cannot be recovered. But is it too late? Absolutely not. The math still works. The engine can still be built. It just requires more fuel going in per month than it would have if he had started sooner. The question Daniel and anyone in a similar position needs to answer is not whether it's too late. It's whether they're willing to make the contributions real right now rather than in another 3 years. Because here's the thing about financial delay. Every year you wait doesn't keep you even. Every year you wait makes the gap larger, the required monthly contribution higher, and the margin for error smaller. The best time to hit these milestones was in your 20s. The second best time is today.
Here is your action framework. 4 things. Start tonight. Action 1. Calculate your real number. Open every account you have. Add them up. Compare that number to the milestone benchmarks. 1x salary by 35, 3x by 40, 5x by 45. Know exactly where you stand. Most people avoid this because the number is uncomfortable. Do it anyway. You cannot fix a problem you are not willing to look at. Action 2. Find your savings rate and protect it. Take your monthly investment contributions, 401k, IRA, brokerage, and divide by your monthly gross income. That is your savings rate. If it is below 15%, identify one specific change you can make today to move it up. One subscription canceled, one dining out habit reduced, one automatic transfer set up. Not 10 changes, 1. Action 3. Eliminate the drain. List every debt you carry with an interest rate above 7%. Those are your priority targets before any discretionary spending. Every dollar going to high-interest debt is a dollar your retirement account is not getting. The debt is not neutral. It is actively working against every milestone on this list. Action 4. Set the automation and stop watching it. The single greatest predictor of investment success is not picking the right fund or timing the market. It is consistency. Set your contributions to automatic. Set your annual increase to automatic, 1% with every raise. Then do not touch it. Do not check it every week. Do not move it around based on headlines. Set it and let the compounding do its job. The S&P 500 has recovered from every single crash in its history, every one. The 2000 crash, the 2008 crash, the 2020 crash. The people who stayed invested through all of them came out ahead. The people who reacted to fear locked in losses and missed the recovery. Consistency beats timing every time, without exception, over a long enough horizon. Here's the final thing to understand about these milestones. They are not about being rich. They are not about having more than your neighbor or retiring to a beach house. They're about having options. The person who hits the 5x milestone by 45 does not have to stay in a job they hate until 67. They have the financial cushion to make a career pivot, take time off, weather a period of unemployment, or simply say no to things that compromise their health or integrity. The person who misses every milestone and arrives at 60 with $80,000 saved does not have those options. They are dependent on their employer, on Social Security, on circumstances they cannot control. And that dependence, that lack of financial agency, is a form of stress that compounds just as reliably as interest does, just in the wrong direction. The milestones are not just numbers, they are freedom checkpoints. Each one you hit gives you a little more control over how your life runs.
Each one you miss hands a little more control to someone or something else. You still have time. The engine is not gone, but the fuel needs to go in now, not next year, not after the next raise, not when things calm down. The snowball is already on the hill. The question is whether you're going to push it or watch it sit there. If this gave you a clearer picture of where you stand and what to do about it, subscribe to Wealth Blueprint. We publish videos every week breaking down the exact math behind the financial decisions that determine whether your future is one you chose or one that happened to you. And if you're sitting where Daniel was, staring at a number that doesn't match where you thought you'd be, drop it in the comments. Not the number itself, just where you are on the milestone map. Because I can guarantee you're not alone, and knowing you're not alone is sometimes the first step to actually doing something about it. The math works. The only question is whether you will. This content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute personalized financial advice. Consider consulting a qualified financial advisor for guidance specific to your situation.